Maseches Tamid. We're going to quickly review Perek Beis, the first few Mishnayos, and we're going to be near the finished Perek Beis today. But in order to get the picture of the whole first phase of the Avodah of the Beis Hamikdash, we're going to take a look at it all together. Announcement about the Sforim. I was unable to obtain the Kahati Tamid, even though I even contacted Michael Rose for that purpose. We couldn't get the number of Mishnayos that we need. But yesterday, Baruch Hashem, I was able to obtain through Binyamin at the Merkaz, V'hoshev Esfar Avoda, which I believe is even going to be a better option for the group. It has the Mishnayos, the Tamid Mishnayos. Then after that, it has the Gemara. And then the pictures are absolutely fascinating pictures. In fact, the diagrams that I've so far handed out for Maseches Tamid all come from the V'hoshev Esfar Avoda version. Everything is explained. It is in Hebrew, but every step of Maseches Tamid is explained with a picture, colorful picture, beautiful pictures. I have 15 V'hoshev Esfar Avoda copies, and I'm just going to confirm who those copies are for. So make sure we have it for everyone. If anyone still wants to get a copy, more can be ordered. Right now, I have Eliezer Entel, Gold, Mr., Mrs., I'm just saying last names, Entel, Gold, Schiffman, Singer, Tillis, Simons, Fader, Leibowitz, Elowat, Beck, Davis, Samad, Zabrowski, 2 copies, I believe Zabrowski requested a copy for Nolman, Abelis. That's 15 copies. If there's anyone else that wants a copy, please write me an email. We'll try to get additional copies. Levi Blumenfeld has graciously volunteered to deliver the 15 copies. So I'm going to ask Levi to send out an email under his email address. He's agreed to do this. And each of you who has ordered one of the volumes, please write him back your name, address, and cell phone number, and he will deliver it to your home so that we can learn together from this wonderful sefer, and we can refer to the diagrams as we go through it. The cost of each volume is 54 shekel, which is less than I expected the Kahati to be. 54 shekel, you can give that to Levi in cash or a check left blank. All of the checks will be going to Binyamin at the Sforim store, and all the cash will be going to him. I did not pay for them. He set up an account there so that this can be paid for as we receive the money. All right, so B'li Neder, tomorrow we hope we'll be able to begin with the V'hoshev Esfar Avoda volume. It's beautiful. I believe that every one of you will immensely enjoy it, the pictures, the explanation. It's really a wonderful product. Okay, so we're in Maseches Tamid Perek Beis. We're going to read through the Mishnayos we've already read through quickly to give us a complete picture of the Beis Hamikdash opening up in the morning. At the end of Perek Aleph, we learned about the pious, the first lottery that was done in the Beis Hamikdash, and this was done still while it was night, before dawn. This was done according to most Mefarshim in the Beis Hamoked. We go back to our Midos diagram 3. We have the Beis Hamoked on the northern wall of the Azorah. Half of the base, part of the Beis Hamoked was in the Hail, and therefore you were allowed to sit there. Part of the Beis Hamoked was in the Azorah, where you couldn't sit. Anything that's in the Azorah, you can't sit unless you're a sign of the Davidic dynasty. So we're going to go according to Rov Mefarshim. that this first lottery, there'll be 4 lotteries in the morning. Each of the lotteries will be discussed in Maseches Tamid. The first lottery is who's going to do the Trumas Hadeshet. Who's going to take that little shovel of ash off the Mizbeach. This was done before dawn. The person who was in charge of the pious, the supervisor of the lottery, there were 15 supervisors in the Beis HaMikdash, we're told, Maseches Shkolim. He entered the Beis HaMoked before dawn, and he performed the lottery, and we discussed how the lottery was performed inside the Beis HaMoked. Kohanim who were interested in doing that avodah, they got up very early. It's before dawn. They had to go down the steps in the Beis HaMoked. They toveled in the mikveh. They came back up. Some of the Kohanim did not get up that early. Remember, they're only coming back every 24 weeks. Every 24 weeks, a new mishmar. And even in the mishmar, they're broken down into 6 batei av. So the chance to do avodah, if you're a Kohen, occurs once every 24 weeks. And in the 24 weeks, only 1 day during that 6-day week. According to a minor, according to the minority opinion, there was actually 7 days during the week during which they split the avodah, which means on Shabbos they split the avodah as well. Rov Mefarshim say that the avodah was split into 6 days. Shabbos, the whole Beis Av. So you have 24 mishmaros, and in each mishmar there are 6 or 7 batei avot. So today is Wednesday. Last night, Kohanim who were going to do the work today came and slept in the Beis HaMoked, in the area in which you're allowed to sleep, the part that's in the Chayil. Those who were interested in doing the avodah this morning, starting with the Trumas Hadeshet, they went before dawn down the steps into the mikveh in the Beis HaMoked, came back up. The man in charge, the supervisor in charge of the pious, came into the Beis HaMoked. Everybody who was interested was toiveled. They were now in their articles of clothing, big day kohen hedyot, 4 articles of clothing, and the pious started. The pious started by the head of the lottery, the supervisor of the lottery, looking around. If he saw 15 Kohanim or 20 Kohanim who were ready and wanted to do the Trumas Hadeshet, he would call out a number, 30, 50, 70. It was a number larger than the amount of people he saw. He then took off the hat, the special hat, one of the 4 articles of clothing of a Kohen Hedyot. He took it off so that he would know with whom he's starting. The Kohanim would then put out fingers. These halachas about how you do the pious, much of it is discussed in Masechet Yuma. You couldn't use your thumb for different reasons. They put out their fingers, and the Kohen, the supervisor of the pious, could not count heads. You're not allowed to do a head count unless it's through a maktis a shekel. So he would count fingers. You keep on counting the fingers until he got to the number. You'd have to go round and round. If there are 15 people in, he said 32, you'd have to go round and round. He counts the fingers. He ends up with the winner. The winner of this first lottery is going to do the Trumas Hadeshet. He's going to leave the Beis HaMoked through the southern door of the Beis HaMoked. He's going to go towards the Mizbeach by himself. He's going to wash his hands and the feet in the kiyar right there. And then he's going to take the shovel that's on the western side of the ramp, right here, a special shovel that was left there. He's going to go up the ramp, up to the Mizbeach, take a shovel of ash off, go down the ramp, now come to the east side of the Mizbeach. On the east side of the Mizbeach, there was a little place called Beis Hadeshet, where he would put the ash. And according to Rashi, this was a miracle in the Beis HaMikdash. In this area, whatever you put there was absorbed into the ground, including this ash. That's where we were up to at the end of Perek Aleph. That is the mitzvah of Trumas Hadeshet, not to be confused with the separate mitzvah of Hotza'as Hadeshet. We take a look And now we're going to go into Perek Beis quickly. Tamid diagram 3. At the top of the Mizbeach, here's the ramp. The ramp is on the southern side of the Azorah, and the ramp moves towards the north. And the Mizbeach is still on the southern side, but it's towards the north. And there's a machlokas exactly where the Mizbeach was. This is the Mizbeach HaChitzon, the outer Mizbeach, where sacrifices were brought, not to be confused with the small Mizbeach that was inside the Heichal. Our diagram number 3. This is the large Mizbeach, where the ash was taken off of. This is for animal sacrifices. The outside Mizbeach, Mizbeach HaChitzon. Inside the Heichel, you have the small Mizbeach, Mizbeach HaPnimi, the inside Mizbeach, or the Mizbeach HaKtores. This Mizbeach was only used for Ketores. We're going to learn about that today. So this is the Mizbeach we're looking at. In your Midos diagram 3, you see at the top of the Mizbeach, there are 4 little things. One is called Marocha Gedola. That's the wood, the logs of wood that were placed there to burn animal offerings. You have, the words are printed there. Marocha Gedola. Now the Marocha Gedola, that's the larger assembly of logs. Marocha of Ketores, which is closer to the west. The Marocha Gedola, which is for animal offerings, is on the eastern side of the Mizbeach. The Marocha for Ketores on the western side of the Mizbeach. At the back of the Mizbeach, there's another Marocha, and that was simply to be Makayim the mitzvah of Eish Tamid Tuka ala Mizbeach L'Sichbet. There's supposed to be a fire on the Mizbeach 24/7. And so that's the third group of logs. And in the middle, this circle is the tapuach, the apple. It wasn't an apple. It was where they would pile up the ash of consumed carbonas and the ash of coals, and they would put it in the middle of the Mizbeach. That's the tapuach that when it got very full and took up too much space at the top of the Mizbeach, they would remove it through a process that will be discussed later in the Masechta. That's called Hotzoas Hadeshet, removing the whole lot of the ash from the Mizbeach. That was not done every day. It was only done as necessary. Okay, the basic shita. So the Trumas Hadeshen of that Kohen who won the lottery and took off a shovel of ash and put it on the eastern side of the ramp, that's done every day, and that's the subject of the first lottery. Removing the large pile, the tapuach of the ash, was done only as necessary. The Kohen who won the lottery did Trumas Hadeshen. Removing the tapuach is Hotzoas Hadeshen and was done only as necessary to clear off the top of the Mizbeach. We mentioned the Rambam and the Ravid hold that the tapuach was also removed every day. We're going according to the Shita of Rov Rishonim. Trumas Hadeshen, one Kohen takes some ash off the top of the Mizbeach, puts it on the eastern side of the ramp every day. Trumas Hadeshen. Hotzoas Hadeshen of the tapuach, only done as necessary. And that's where we're up to now. So if you take a look at Midos 3, you're looking at the Mizbeach with 3 ma'arochot, 3 sets of logs and a tapuach in the middle. You have now a larger version of that picture in Tamid number 3, Marocha Gedola for animal offerings, Marocha for Ketores, the Marocha that was there to keep a fire burning 24/7, Eish Tamid, and the tapuach in the middle. Okay, let's go now to Perek Beis, Mishnah Aleph. Ra'u echad sheyorad v'heim ratzu uvo. The other Kohanim who were still in the Beis Hamoked, they were waiting for the winner of the Trumas Hadeshen lottery to finish the Trumas Hadeshen. When they realized that he finished the Trumas Hadeshen, they ran out of the Beis Hamokeh. Miaru v'kidshu yedeim v'ragleim min hakiyar. They all went to the kiyar and they washed their hands and their feet. You can't do avod unless you go to the kiyar and wash your hands and your feet. And hopefully before the end of today's year, we're going to see more about this kiyar. The kiyar we learned about was a large basin of water that was on a stand. And we learned about the pulley system that they had to use at night or early morning, early before dawn, in order to make sure that the water that was left over each day didn't become nifsal balina. Anything that is in a holy vessel and is not used and sunset hits, we're using the simple shita, it becomes possible to use the next day. So at the end of a given day, the kiyar may still have water in it. It's about to be, sunset's about to come. Whatever water is left in that kiyar, you're not going to be able to use the next day. You have to spill it out because the night is now going to, the night, the lina, it's going to sleep and not be used. There's no avod in the Beis Hamikdash at night except the Trumas Hadeshen, so nobody's going to be washing their hands, their feet. The water is going to become nifsal balina. So Ben Katan, who we learned about, made a muchni. He made a pulley system next to the pulley system. He put a bore in the ground, which was like a mikveh, and at night they would immerse through the pulley system, lifting up the kiyar. They'd immerse it in the bore, and because they immersed it in the bore, the kiyar and its water were now immersed in the mikveh. In the morning, they raised up the kiyar, and they didn't have to throw out the water from yesterday. This kiyar had 12 faucets to it, so that 12 kohanim can wash their hands and their feet at any given time. And that's what we're going to learn hopefully later today. Why 12? Originally, it only had 2 faucets. Our Ben Katan also, when he created the pulley system, he built more faucets so that there could be 12 kohanim washing their hands and their feet at the same time. We're in Perek Beis, Mishnah Aleph, so you're on page 10 of your Mishnayos. Notnus hamagrefos v'satzinoros v'olu rosh hamizbeach v'yivorim v'hapedorim shlonis aklim v'ev sonken osol etztodi hamizbeach it not son machzikim certainly son basoival catch. Other kohanim who came out of the Beis Hamokeh would take pitchforks and shovels, and they would go to the top of the mizbeach. This is after the lottery winner did his Trumas Hadeshen for the day. Other kohanim of that mishmar, the Wednesday kohanim of this, the Beis Av of this mishmar, the Wednesday Beis Av of this week's mishmar, went up to the mizbeach. Some of them had pitchforks, some of them had shovels. The ones with the pitchforks would remove whatever meat, limbs of animals are still on top of the mizbeach. They need to prepare the mizbeach. Yesterday, korbanos were burnt on Tuesday. Some korbanos were burnt in the afternoon, and the korban tamid was burnt in the afternoon. So there may be some limbs that are still not completely consumed, but they have to prepare the mizbeach. Tamid diagram 3. They have to prepare the mizbeach, specifically the Marocha Gedola. They need to clean this area because they're going to put new logs on to consume new korbanos today. So this area had to be cleaned. That's what we're dealing with right now. So the kohanim with the pitchforks would remove the limbs or meat that the limbs that were not consumed yesterday, and they would put them around the top of the mizbeach, wherever there was room, or they would put it on the ramp of the mizbeach. The kohanim who had shovels would then come and shovel off the ash and put that ash on the tapua. So again, the Kohen before dawn who won the lottery took a little ash and put it in the Beis Hadeshen. Then other kohanim came, removed the limbs of yesterday's korbanos, put it on the mizbeach. Other Kohanim took the remaining ash, put it on the tapuach. The tapuach stayed there, except according to the Ram and the right. The tapuach stayed there. Now this corner of the mizbeach is clean, and now it's ready for new logs to be put on. So that's what the Mishnah says, that they would take the limbs and put it on top of the mizbeach. Mishnah base. Heichelu malin ba'efral gabe tapuach. That's the next thing that I mentioned. The Kohanim with the shovels would then take the shovels, remove the ash from this area, Tamid diagram 3, and put the ash on the tapuach. The tapuach hoya be'emetz hamizbeach. The tapuach was in the middle of the mizbeach. Amim olav kishlosh me'os kor. Sometimes it was so heavy, there was so much ash, it weighed, it was the amount of 300 kor. And as we mentioned, we learned the Mishnah. This is for purposes of emphasis. There was never 300 kor. The mizbeach could not hold such a number, such an amount. The number 300 is used in different places by Chazal as sort of an exaggerated amount, an emphatic amount, just to tell us there was a tremendous amount of ash that gathered on the tapuach, which we can understand according to all the mafarshim that we mentioned, that they would keep on piling ash in the middle of the mizbeach, and they only took out the tapuach every so often. So obviously it gathered a lot of ash. According to the Rambam and the Raiva, that the tapuach was removed every day. The Mishnah is a little more difficult to understand. Uvar Golim, we're now Mishnah Beis, we're on page 11. Uvar Golim, and on Yom Tovim, meaning Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, Lo Hoyim Edashna, Yisamanei Shu Noilam Mizbeach. They would not remove the tapuach, even according to the Rambam and Raiva, that the tapuach was removed every day in the midst of Otzoros Hadeshen. They did not do it on Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. It's a beautification of the Mizbeach. Let Klal Yisrael, who are Oila Regel, see how beautiful it is, how many Jews offered karbonos. The pile in the tapuach is so high because so many Jews, Baruch Hashem, brought karbonos, and that was a noi la Mizbeach. We learned the Mishnah. I quoted the tshuva, some sefer. Somebody wrote him. It's a very, very important concept to remember. Sometimes we think that we take mitzvahs, we put them in a silver cabinet. Mitzvahs are meant to be used. Some sefer was asked by a very wealthy person. This person wanted to buy 7 esrogim. So every day of Sukkot, you'll be able to use a fresh esrog. We know that when you use an esrog, and mamish, you use it, the kavana, your fingers are on it, and if you sweat, the esrog has brown marks from your fingers. And this Gavir wanted to have an esrog every day. Zekeli van Veyu Hodor, you want to beautify the mitzvah every day, a fresh esrog that had no finger marks on it. And he wanted to know if Chassam Sofer felt that that was a heed or mitzvah, and Chassam Sofer told him that the finger marks on an esrog are part of the heed or mitzvah. It's beautiful. At the end of the 7 days, look at the esrog, how many finger marks it has on it. What's that an indication of? People are using the esrog. Baruch Hashem, people have made a bracha on the esrog. That's the beauty of a mitzvah. The beauty, as I mentioned, of a Haggadah is the wine that's poured all over it, the matzah crumbs from all the years that have accumulated in there. That's a beautiful Haggadah. Today, people like Haggadahs that are leather bound with names and bas. Say that's wonderful, but don't be makbid if wine pours on this leather Haggadah. To say that it's a beautiful thing, it shows that it's something that's used. If you don't want to use it, you put it into a museum. So the Mishnah says this is a noilam mizbeach. So according to all Shitas, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, they allowed the ash to accumulate in the tapuach in the middle of mizbeach, so people can see how many karbonos were brought, and they should say, what a beautiful mizbeach, what a beautiful Klal Yisrael, they bring so many karbonos. The Mishnah now says, Miyonov, you shouldn't think that the tapuach ever piled up because Kohanim were lazy and didn't want to remove it from the mizbeach, because when the tapuach got large, it was quite heavy. Kohanim were not lazy. Kohanim was reason. When the tapuach had to be emptied, it was emptied. The fact that it wasn't emptied on Shalosh Regam had nothing to do because they were lazy on Yom Tif. It's because it was a beautiful mizbeach. Mishnah Gimel, which is on page 12. Where are we up to right now? Tamid diagram 3. We have the eastern corner, the southeastern corner of the Mizbech, Maracha Gedol, has been cleared. The limbs of the animals have been pitchforked off and put on top of the Mizbech in other places. The ash that's left over has been shoveled off and put on the Tapuach. Southeastern corner of the Mizbech is now clear. What are we going to do? We're going to put new logs here. Mishnah, Heichelu Malin Bagizum. They began bringing up the Kohanim. We take a look at Tamid diagram 4. And by the way, all these pictures come from the Hashem Esavoda, which you're going to receive. These are large logs, and you may need 2, maybe 3 Kohanim to bring them up to the Mizbeach. And they were brought up to the Mizbeach. The Kohen who won the lottery, the first lottery, the first of 4 lotteries, we're only speaking about the first lottery. The Kohen who won the first lottery, not only did he do Trumas Hadeshen, but after the logs were brought on top of the Mizbeach by other Kohanim, it was his privilege and honor to set up the logs. And we mentioned the reason that Chazal did this was since the person who won the lottery had to wake up very early in the morning, go to the mikveh, had to wake up even before dawn, not early morning, before dawn, go to the mikveh, put on his big day kahuna, and be ready for the lottery. Chazal wanted to give an incentive for Kohanim to wake up in the morning and to be interested in doing the Trumas Hadeshen. They wanted to give them this incentive to wake up early. So they said, if you win the lottery and you do the Trumas Hadeshen, you're going to also be Zoicha to do other things. When the wood is brought up to the Mizbeach by the other Kohanim, you're going to set it up on the top of the Mizbeach. Sidur Atzei Maracha, setting up the wood. That's going to be your mitzvah. And he's going to also get the mitzvah from the diagram 3 of setting up the wood for the Maracha of the Ketoris. And he's also going to get the mitzvah of lighting the Maracha Gedola with fire and the Maracha of Ketoris. I'm saying Maracha Ketoris, please do not get confused. This is not where Ketoris was brought. This is the outer Mizbeach. It's the Maracha of Ketoris because this is where fire was created and coals were removed from this Mizbeach, brought into the Heichal, and on the small Mizbeach, these coals were placed and incense was placed on the coals. So if we go to Midos Perek, diagram 3, the coals are taken off the Mizbeach from the Maracha of Ketores, brought up the 12 steps, brought through the Ulam, through the doors of the Heichal, put on the small Mizbeach, and at the appropriate time in the morning and in the afternoon, Ketores will put on the coals. So in diagram Tamid number 3, the Ketores is not burned here. This is the outer Mizbeach. It is the coals that were created here to be brought into the Heichal upon which the incense will be burned. So the Kohen who did the Trumas Hadeshen, the winner of the first lottery, he did the Trumas Hadeshen. He set up the logs for the Maracha Gedola after they were brought up by other Kohanim. He set up the Maracha of the Ketores here after the logs were brought up by other Kohanim. He's the one that also did set the fire on the 2 sets of logs. And he's going to also do the mitzvah of Shnei Gezirei Eitzim, which we discussed. After the fire was started on the Maracha Gedola, we learn out from a pasuk in the Torah that the Kohen puts an additional 2 pieces of wood on the lit Maracha. Special mitzvah, the Maracha Gedola lit, and after that 2 additional pieces of wood are put on. So our winner of the early before dawn lottery is going to do 1, the Trumas Hadeshen, 2, set up the logs of the Maracha Gedola, 3, set up the logs on the Maracha Shel Ketores, 4, he's going to light, he's going to ignite the 2 sets of logs, 5, he's going to throw the 2 pieces of additional wood on the Maracha Gedola after it's lit. So he's going to be doing 5 mitzvahs because he won the first lottery. So now we're in Mishnah Gimel, page 12. Heichelu malim begizrin, the other Kohanim would begin bringing the logs to the top of the Mizbech, l'sader es ha'maracha, in order to put the logs, the maracha, in place. So the Mishnah asks, "V'chi kol ha'etzim ksher maracha?" Are all wood kosher to put on the maracha? Any kind of wood from any kind of tree? Hen, the Mishnah says, yes, you can use any kind of wood for the maracha. Hen kol ha'etzim ksherim maracha. Chutz mishel zayis mishel gefen. Chazal prohibited the use of wood that comes from an olive tree or wood that comes from a grapevine. And that's Mishum, as we discussed, Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is very productive in olives and olive oil, grapes and wine. And because of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, to make sure that people that live in Eretz Yisrael have panasa and they can live in Eretz Yisrael. Mishum Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, Chazal said, do not touch Atzei Zayis or Atzei Gefen, even though the Atzei Zayis and the Atzei Gefen are going to be used for avoda in the Beis Hamikdash. Don't touch Atzei Zayis and Atzei Gefen to preserve them for Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. An amazing concept, preserve the Atzei Zayis and the Atzei Gefen for Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, and don't bring them on the Mizbeach. Avu be'elu regilin. The Mishnah says, even though all wood's kosher for the maracha, except we don't use zayis and gefen, the ones that will come, the wood that was customarily used, the mubiyah shel te'ena, branches or wood or logs that came from a fig tree, v'shel egos, v'shel eid shemen, a nut tree, a certain kind of nut tree, and a tree called eid shemen. There's a machlokas what an eid shemen is. We asked the question, if we don't use olive wood, we don't use grapevine wood, so why are we using te'ena wood, which is also from the Shivas Haminim and grows abundantly in Eretz Yisrael? So why are we using fig wood? And the Gemara tells us, Yishawi tells us, that the only fig wood that was permitted to be used were from those kind of branches where figs were no longer growing or was an old tree, then they used atzei te'ena. Other than that, they didn't use atzei te'ena. Mishnah Daled. Okay, now we're moving to page 13. So far, we're just reviewing, but we're getting now a picture of the whole avodah as it's moving forward. Sidra Maracha Gedola Mizracha. Tamid, diagram number 3. The setting up of the Maracha Gedola for the consumption of Karbonis is going to be set up on the southeastern side of the Mizbeach. See the Maracha Gedola Mizracha. The Maracha Gedola on the eastern side. V'chazita Mizracha. And the window is towards the Mizrach. We saw this in diagram, Tamid diagram number 4. Right there in the middle picture, you have an arrow, the Chazita. You can see, as we mentioned, Lahavdil, they did this as we used to do as children with Lincoln logs. Logs went east to west, next row north-south, next row east to west, next row north to south. The result is what you see at the bottom picture on diagram 4. The Chazita, however, is a window. There was a place at the bottom row where they didn't put a log at all, so it was completely open. The purpose of the Chazita, the window, was to allow air, oxygen to get into the entire, the underneath of all the logs. So when the fire is lit, there'll be air and oxygen that can circulate there. And of course, we know that for the fire to actually ignite and ignite well, we need air to circulate in there. For those of you who have made barbecues with coals, you know you need to circulate air amongst the coals. So when they set up the maracha, who set up the maracha? Kohanim brought up the logs, and then the winner of the lottery for Trumas Hadeshin, he set up the logs, he left the Chazita. And the Chazita was on the eastern side of the Mizbeach. So if we go back to our Midos diagram number 3, here's our Mizbeach, here's our Maracha Gedola, and the chazita would be on the eastern side of the Mizbeach. And the reason why it was on the eastern side of the Mizbeach, we explained. All doors, openings of the Beis HaMikdash, if you came down from the Har HaZeisim, you came through Shushan Habira, you came through the Ezras Nefshim, you came through Shar Nicanor. All these entrances faced one another so that there would be a flow of air, a wind that would come in through these eastern doors, one facing the other. And so on the eastern side of the Mizbeach, there was more of wind or more air, and the air would go right into the chazita, which was open on the northern side of the Ma'aracha, and would help the combustion of the Ma'aracha Gedola. The Mishnah continues and says, we're going from page 13 to page 14. V'rashe hagizur hapniniyim hayunogim b'tapuach. We go back to Tamid diagram 3. We have the Ma'aracha Gedola. It starts southeast. Here's where the wood begins, and it's moving towards the west. The western ends of these pieces of log, the western ends of these logs would just barely come and touch the tapuah. And going now back to Tamid diagram 4, as we mentioned at the bottom, the Mishnah says there was space between each log, like Lincoln logs, lahavdil. And this is where they were ignite the alita. The alita were small little branches. They lit these small little branches and put these small little branches in these openings. That's not the chazita. The chazita is a window that has no log at all to let air go in. But besides that chazita, there was space between each log, and they would take branches, twigs, light them, and put them in between the logs. And in this way, the whole thing would ignite. And that's called the alisa. The alisa are these little branches or twigs that they use to ignite the entire ma'aracha. Okay, we're now in Perek Bey's Mishnah Hey, and we're going to be looking at page 14 through 15. And this is the last Mishnah in Perek Bey's, and this is a new Mishnah. We did not learn this, so until now we've been reviewing the process. And we've learned about Trumas Hadeshen every day according to everyone by the winner of the lottery, who also did setting up the logs on the Ma'aracha Gedola, setting up the logs on the Ma'aracha Ketana. He lit the two Ma'arachot, and he also threw the Shnei Gizrei Eitzim on the additional two pieces of wood on top of the Ma'aracha Gedola. Okay. That's what we're talking about. We haven't learned yet when each of these things are done. We've learned that about the Trumas Hadeshen. We've discussed Hotzos Hadeshen, but we have not learned how they took out the tapuach. And we've learned about how to set up the ma'aracha, but we've not learned yet the order in which to do it. What time in the morning did you do it? And we have now come to the point where we're going to actually set up the ma'aracha. We've not learned about the Shnei Gezirei Eitzim. I mentioned it to you, but what order is it done? We'll get to in a few minutes. Baru Mishnah Hey Bar Misham Atze Te'ena Yafin. They would now select fine wood, very nice wood. L'sader ha'ma'aracha hashniya. Back to Tamid diagram number 3. We've gone through the process of cleaning the Ma'aracha Gedola, pitchforks taking off the limbs, shovels removing the ash, putting the tapuach. The area was cleared, new logs brought up. The winner of the pious would then order the logs, leave a window, and that's it. He hasn't lit this ma'aracha yet. The ma'aracha is set. It has a window for air circulation. It's ready to go, but no one's lit anything yet. Next step, the Kohen who won the lottery is going to go to now this side of the Mizbeach. He's going to go to the western side of the Mizbeach, and the logs are there, which were brought up by other Kohanim. And the winner of the lottery is now going to set up these logs, which is called the Marocha of Ketores. Lasada Maroch Shnir Laktores, Mikeneged Keren Marovis Deromis. And this was, as we mentioned, southwest corner of the Mizbeach is where he's going to set up these logs to create a fire, to create coals, which he'll take into the Heichel and put on the small Mizbeach. Not him, some other Kohen will do it. But the purpose of this fire is to create coals. Moshuch min hakeren klapi tzofen arba amos. The Marocha of the Ketores was not right at the corner of the Mizbeach. It was about 4 amos into the Mizbeach or to the north. The ramp is on the south. You're moving south to north. This Marocha of Ketores was not at the corner of the western corner of the Mizbeach. It was pushed 4 amos into the Mizbeach. This is a very complicated cheshbon. I mentioned that earlier this morning. There's machlokas exactly where the outer Mizbeach was placed in the Beis HaMikdash. We have learned, and that's consistently from Maseches Tamid, that the Mizbeach, the ramp was near the southern wall of the Azorah, extended up 32 amos. The Mizbeach was 32 by 32. 32 amos of a ram. There's a whole cheshbon there as well. 32 amos of Mizbeach is 64 amos. And there was space between the ramp and the southern wall of the Azorah. At any rate, how wide was the Azorah, Rabbi Isai? The Azorah was 187 east to west, 135 north to south. So if the Azorah is 135 south to north, and the Mizbeach and the ramp only occupy 64 amos, and there's a little space from the bottom of the ramp to the southern wall, the Mizbeach is virtually completely on the southern half of the Azorah. If the Azorah south to north is 135, the Mizbeach and the ramp together are 64, and you have some space at the bottom of the ramp to the southern wall, 64, and give it some room, put it at 70, the Mizbeach barely enters the second half, the northern half of the Azorah. And that's a big machlokas in Masechta Yuma, whether the Mizbeach was pushed further out north or was, as we have learned, basically in the southern part of the Azorah. So we're going to look at the picture this way. There is a reason why this Marocha, the first Marocha we learned about for the consumption of animals, is on the southeastern corner of the Mizbeach. They didn't draw it to the north. This Marocha, the second one for Ketores, is on the southwest corner of the Mizbeach, but not at the corner like this one. They pulled it, they drew it 4 amos towards the north for reasons that have to do with exactly where the Mizbeach stood. That's a complex calculation. Okay, at any rate, Ba'omed Chomesh Se'in Gecholim, they put enough wood there so that Omed, the word is spelled in the Mishnah with an ayin. The ayin is the same thing in this case as an aleph. Omed means umdana, an estimation. They estimated that they needed chomesh se'in gechol. They would need a measurement of 5 se'in of coals. That's the amount of coals you would need to take from the Marocha and bring it into the Heichel and burn the Ketores in the morning and burn Ketores in the afternoon. That's the approximate amount of coal you need. It's how much wood, how much log do you need? You need enough logs on the Marocha of Ketores that every day you would create 5 se'in of coals. Uva Shabbos, but on Shabbos, on Shabbos, you would put more logs on here the Maroch of Ketores, because you needed more coals, 8 se'in of coals. Why? We'll talk about in a moment. The Mishnah will tell us. During the week, you put enough logs on the Maroch of Ketores to create 5 se'in of coal to bring the Ketores inside the Heichal. On Shabbos, you put additional logs on the Maroch of Ketores because you wanted to create enough coal of 8 se'in because you need more coals on Shabbos. Now again, I emphasize, we've done several times, Beis HaMikdash, as we know, is a very, very special place for many, 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 many reasons. But one of the things that was going on in the Beis HaMikdash on Shabbos was things that we can't imagine as in terms of Shmir Shabbos. They were slaughtering animals, which is a malacha doraisa. You're not allowed to kill any behem on Shabbos. They were creating fire. They're putting logs on the mizbeach and igniting fire. They're doing all kinds of things in the Beis HaMikdash, which is mutter to do inside the Beis HaMikdash, even though it is Shabbos. So yes, they're putting wood on the mizbeach on Shabbos, and they're creating a fire, and they're creating coals, and they're going to burn incense. Yes, they're doing this on Shabbos. That was mutter to do in the Beis HaMikdash on Shabbos. Now, why did you need more coals on Shabbos? So the Mishnah continues. We're on page 15. Shasham hayunaisim shnei baziche levoina shalechem haponim. The lechem haponim was on the shulchan. We go back to our midos number 3. We're in the heichal. The heichal has the little mizbeach for the ketores. Then against the southern wall of the azara, the southern wall of the heichal, there was the menorah. Against the northern wall of the heichal, there was the shulchan. Let's see how good that picture is. Okay, so they're showing you, it's small, but they're showing you in words, shulchan lechem haponim. The shulchan of the lechem haponim was a table, and on the table there were 2 sets of shelves. Each set contains 6 lechem ponims. However, the lechem haponim looked, they did not look like challah that we bake on Shabbos with the braids. They didn't look like that. There was a special way they made the lechem haponim. According to one sheet of the lechem haponim, let's see how we do this. Lechem haponim, basically, if you can imagine these 2 svarim with a base underneath it, that's what the lechem haponim looked like. 2 walls and a base underneath it. And these things were baked in special pans that were in the form of 2 walls and a bottom. You put the dough in there, you baked it, it came out, and that's what it looked like. There were 12 lechem haponims, 6 on each side of the shulchan, the shelvings. And between the 2 sets of 6, there was something called bazichen. Bazichen are little spoons. And on each spoon, there was levona, there was a type of spice, a type of incense. The incense remained there the whole week, just as the lechem haponim remained there the whole week. When was the lechem haponim distributed? Shabbos afternoon. Shabbos afternoon, the lechem haponim was taken off the shulchan, the 12 of them. It was given out to the kohanim who were in that mishmar. They ate from it. And the 2 baziche levona, the 2 spoons that had levona, type of incense in it, were then taken, and the 2 spoons were put on the outer mizbeach. It was put on the mizbeach, or outer mizbeach, and they were burned. So on Shabbos, besides on a regular day, you're going to burn ketores on the inside mizbeach haktoris, in the morning and the afternoon. So you need 5 se'in of coals. So you only need a certain amount of logs. On Shabbos, you need more logs to create more coals, because besides coals needed to burn the incense as every day, morning and afternoon, the heichal, you're going to also burn the 2 spoons of the levona on Shabbos afternoon when the lechem aponim is distributed to all the Kohanim, and that's what the Mishnah says. Shabbos on Shabbos ba'omed shmona sin gecholim. You needed approximately 8 se'in. It's a measurement of coals. Why? Shesham ha'yinoisem shnei bazich levona shel lechem haponim. That on Shabbos the Maracha of Ketores, Tamid 3. This is where you would put the 2 spoonfuls of Levona that were on the shulchan the whole week until Shabbos afternoon. Again, do not confuse the Maracha here with Ketores. This is a Maracha that was used every day to create coals. The coals were then taken into the Heichel, put on the small mizbeach, and on the small mizbeach they would put the incense. On Shabbos they did the same thing, except they needed more coals. They put more logs here, the Maracha of Shel Ketores. They created more coals. Some coals were brought into the Heichel morning, afternoon, in order to burn the incense inside. And the remaining coals on this Maracha were used. They took the 2 spoons of Levona that were in the Heichel and brought them out of the Heichel to burn on this Maracha Shel Ketores on Shabbos afternoon, and that's why they needed additional coals for Shabbos. So this Maracha Shel Ketores is going to create coals, and those coals are going to be brought, step 1, inside the Heichel to burn the incense inside the Heichel. So the coals are going in every day of the week. In addition, on Shabbos, besides coals going in to burn the incense in the Heichel, the 2 spoons of the Levona came out of the Heichel from the Shulchan and were burned on this Maracha of Ketores, and that's why they needed more coals on Shabbos. To finish the Mishnah, the Mishnah says, remember in our Tamid diagram 3, we learned earlier that Kohanim took pitchforks and took the limbs off, the limbs of yesterday's korbanos. They removed them from this area on the Mizbeach, southeast. They removed them and put them on top of the Mizbeach. They didn't throw them out, obviously. They're korbanos. But they had to clean this area. So they pitchforked them out and put them on the top of the Mizbeach around the ram. Now we have a beautifully assembled new Maracha here with wood, with a window in it, etc. We have a beautifully assembled Maracha Shel Ketores. Nothing's on fire yet. Now, what are you going to do with these animals, these limbs that have been put around the Mizbeach? So now the Mishnah says, we go back to those limbs. Machzirin osam l'maracha. Now you take those limbs and put them back on the Maracha Gedola, where animal korbanos are consumed. These are the limbs from yesterday that were put around the Mizbeach to clean this area. Now the area has been cleaned. There's a new set of logs here. Now they take these limbs with the pitchforks, they put them back on top of this Maracha. Machzirin osam l'maracha. Put them back on the Maracha. They then ignited the 2 marachos with fire. Who's going to ignite them? The winner of the lottery for the Trumas Hadeshen. He wins the lottery to do the Trumas Hadeshen. He's going to set up the logs on the Maracha Gedola. He's going to set up the logs on the Maracha Shel Ketores. He's going to ignite both of them. Mitzvah 4, which he just did, he ignited them. Mitzvah 5, after he ignites them, he's going to put the 2 additional pieces of wood on the Maracha Gedola. They ignited the 2 marachos in fire. V'yardu uvolem lishkas hagozis. All the Kohanim now went into lishkas hagozis. Diagram. Remember our lishkas hagozis in Midos 3. Lishkas Hagozis is on the northern wall, right there. Lishkas Hagozis is where the Sanhedrin met, and as we learned at the end of Midos, part of the Lishkas Hagozis is in the Azorah, and therefore you can't sit there. Part of the Lishkas Hagazis is outside the Azora, built above the Chayil, and therefore you can sit there. In the part where you can sit is the Sanhedrin of 71 met. In the part you couldn't sit is where the Kohanim who were going to do the lotteries, the next lotteries, are going to stand. So the first lottery, according to Rov Shitos, was done in the base Hamoked right here. That was for Chumas Hadesh and Lottery 1. We need to do 3 more lotteries for the day to know who's going to do the rest of the avodah. We haven't decided who's going to shech the carbon. We haven't decided who's going to sprinkle the blood. There's a lot of things that need to be done, and we haven't done a lottery for those yet. We've only done a lottery in the Beis Hamoked for the Chumas Hadesh. The Kohanim now, the Mishnah says, Yodu uvo lahem lishkas hagazis. The Kohanim left the Mizbeach, they went down, and they went into Lishkas Hagazis to begin the process of doing the next lottery in order to know who's doing the next set of avodas. We'll begin the next parak, just a few lines. We're now in parak Gimel. Amalahem Hamamuna, the supervisor of the lottery, said to them in the Lishkas Hagazis, Bo'u v'hafisu, come, we're going to do more lotteries. Mi shochek, mi zorek, mi medashen es be'achapnimi, mi medashen es hamnora, mi male bom lakevesh, harosh v'haregel, ushtei hayadayim, ha'oketz v'haregel, ha'choze v'hageu, ushtei defanes, ha'grabayim, v'asolas, v'hachafitim, v'hayayin, efisu, zacha misha zacha. I just read the Mishnah for the purpose of beginning the perek, Amal lahem hamamuna bo v'afisu. The supervisor of the lotteries announced, everybody now in this base of, into the Lishkas Hagazis, and we're going to do the next lottery. So according to Roy Mefarshim, the first lottery was done in the base Hamoked for Chumas Hadeshin. We're now moving to the second lottery. It's going to be in the Lishkas Hagazis. What is it going to look like? In the Lishkas Hagazis, in the part that's in outside the Azora where you're allowed to sit, the supervisor is going to be allowed to sit there. The Kohanim have to stand because they are going to be doing the lottery. They're going to be putting out their fingers, etc. They're going to be in the part of the Lishkas Hagazis that's inside the Azora, where they cannot sit, they have to stand, because the pious was considered a Dovashet Kedusha, so to speak, and it had to be done in a Mokum Kadosh. So it was done in the part of the Lishkas Hagazis that was in the Azora, and therefore the Kohanim had to stand. The supervisor of the lottery was able to sit. Members of Sanhedrin may be there. They were in the northern part of the Lishkas Hagazis where they were allowed to sit. The Kohanim in the pious were in the southern part of the Lishkas Hagazis where they would have to stand. So right now, we've completed the pious Rishon, the first lottery for Chumas Hadeshen. That Kohen did the Chumas Hadeshen. He set up the logs Marocha Gedola. He set up the logs Marocha Shel Ketores. He ignited both of those Marochos, and then he put the 2 additional pieces of wood on the Marocha Gedola, the Shnei Gizrei Eitzim, special mitzvah. He did 5 things. The Chumas Hadeshin could be done before dawn. Setting up the Marocha Gedola wood and setting up the Marocha Ketana wood can be done also before dawn. And then the lighting and the Shnei Gizrei Eitzim should be done. The Shnei Gizrei Eitzim, in fact, has to be done after dawn. And now the Mizbeach is clean. It has new logs on it. The Marocha Gedola is ready for new karbonis. The Marocha for Ketores is ready to create coals for Ketores. And we're up to now the second lottery because we're getting ready now to shech the korban Tamid Shel Shachar, and that's going to be the second lottery, and that's the third perek. Amalem Ha'amuna, the supervisor said, Bo Bafisa, come, we have a second lottery to do. Mi Shoche, we're going to lottery, who's going to shech, Mi Zorek, who's going to sprinkle the blood, etc. And we'll continue tomorrow, B'li Neder, with the second lottery. I wanted just to make a comment about something that we learned about earlier in the Mishnah Hay. And in your version of the Mishnayos, This would be on page 14. When we're talking about the Maracha Gedola, Tamid diagram 3, the Maracha Gedola, southeast, where animals would be consumed, the karbonos would be consumed here. The Mishnah just said you can use any kind of wood, but not olive wood, and not grapevine wood. And the minhag was to use fig wood, or kind of wood that came from a nut tree, or atzei shem. That's all the Mishnah said. Here, with the atzei maracha for the ketores, the Mishnah at the beginning of Mishnah Hay makes a new rule. Baru misham atzei te'ena yafin. Here, for this maracha shel ketores, the Mishnah suddenly says they selected very fine wood that came from a fig tree. Now, when we did the Maracha Gedola, we said everything is okay except Zayis and Geffen, and they would use customarily Te'ena, Shemen. They would use Te'ena, Shemen, or Egos. Now, why can't they use the same three for the Maracha of Ketores? Why does the Mishnah on page 14, Perek Beis, Mishnah Hay, say that for the Maracha of Ketores, they needed very fine fig wood? So Rashi, this is discussed in Gemara in Zevachim and Daf Nun Ches, and Rashi there makes a very interesting comment. Why for the Ketores Maracha, they would select fine fig wood? Rashi comments and says, the reason is because after the chet of the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra, the Rabbanu Shalom appeared to Adam and Chava, and the pasuk says, "Vayedu ki eiromim hein." Adam and Chava, whatever the pasuk means, we're not learning Bereshis right now. The pasuk says, "Vayedu, vatipakachna einei shneim." Their eyes opened up. Their eyes became wise. Vayedu ke eirumim hein. They realized that they were naked. Vayisperu ale se'ena. They sewed together the leaves of a fig tree. Vayasu lehem chagoros, and they made a little piece of clothing for themselves to cover up their private parts. So what did Adam and Chava use? As soon as they realized they were naked, they had sinned. When they realized that they were naked, that was a realization of sin. And how did they try to fix that sin? The first impulse they had was to cover themselves up. And what did they cover themselves up with? Ale te'ena. So Rashi says in Zevachim and Daf Nun Ches, "Mepnei shebo hoisa takonu la'odem arishin s'asar HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes male te'ena." That's the end of Rashi's basic comment. And that's why for diagram 3, the Maracha Shel Ketores, they were makbid to take fig wood for this Maracha. Although for the Maracha Gedola, they were able to use fig wood, wood that came from a nut tree, or an atzei shemen. Three possibilities. For the Maracha Shel Ketores, they only tried to use fig wood. Rashi says because the fig is what Adam Rishon and Chava used to try to cover up their nakedness when they realized they had sinned. Okay, that's a nice shot. But as we say, Ma'in Shmita Eitz Lasina. What does Adam Rishon and Chava sewing together leaves from a fig tree have to do with the Maracha for Ketores? So Mefarshim add to Rashi, they explain Rashi. One of the Averis of the Chet Hadas of the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra was that Adam Rishon and Chava were guilty of Lashon Hara. Between themselves and the Nachash, there was Lashon Hara. Part of the Lashon Hara was that the Nachash said, "Why don't you eat from this tree?" We learned this in the Das Tabunos. We learned it in Rashi and Bereshis. The Nachash said to Chava, "You can eat from this tree." The Eitz Hadas Tov Ra. The reason why God doesn't want you to eat from the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra is doesn't like competition. Because how do you think God figured out how to create the world, how to create you, Chava? Because you need wisdom to create a world, you need wisdom to create human beings. God ate from that tree, and that therefore he got all this power and ingenuity, and that's why he was able to create everything. And the reason he said you can eat everything and anything, just not that tree, because he doesn't want you to turn into God. Because if you turn into God, then you won't be his servants. You're going to become competitive gods. So this kind of Moitzi Shemra, Lashon Hara, Malshinos, all kinds of things were going on between Adam, Chav, and the Nachash. Okay. And the Gemara tells us that Ketores, one of the things that everything in the Beis Hamikdash, all the avodas basically in the Beis Hamikdash, many of them were machaper on different sins. The Gemara says that a kapara for Lashon Hara was Ketores. Ketores was a form of kapara. Doesn't mean that if you spoke Lashon Hara, you don't need to do tshuva. You just wait for the Kohen to bring the Ketores. Doesn't mean that at all. But the Gemara says that Ketores is a partial kapara for the sin of Lashon Hara. Why? So the Gemara says, going back to our diagram 3, we have 2 altars. The outside altar, which is in view of everyone. You go through the Shar Nikanor, and any Yisrael can go through the Shar Nikanor as long as he's Torah, and you can see the outside Mizbeach and the service on the outside Mizbeach. The Ketores is brought on this inner Mizbeach, which is inside the Heichal, which no one can see, except the Kohen who's in there. And Sholosh Regolim, you're able to get a peek in there. We're not going to talk about that right now. But this is the Mizbeach HaKtores, the inside Mizbeach, is hidden. So the Gemara says, Yovoy Dover Shebachashoy, V'chapal Dover Shebachashoy. The Ketores, which is done in a secret, private place, is machaper on the sin of things that are done in that secret, private place. When you talk Lashon Hara, you hush it, you whisper it quietly. Lashon Hara, the Moitzi Shemra, is done many times. Keep it a secret. I don't want you to tell anybody. This is just between me and you. That kind of Aveira, that secretive kind of Aveira, has a kapara from the avoda that's done every day in this place called the Heichal of the Ketores. So therefore, since the Gemara tells us Ketores is a kapara in part for Lashon Hara, and since Adam and Chava, part of their sin was Lashon Hara, Malshinas, Moitzi Shemra, so the Maracha of Ketores, diagram 3 Tamid, the Maracha of Ketores was, they tried to make it out of Te'ena wood. What's Te'ena wood? That's the tree that Adam Rishon and Chava used, the leaves, when they acknowledged their sin. And what was part of their sin? Lashon Hara, Malshinas, Moitzi Shemra. So we take that kind of wood, we put it on the Maracha of Ketores to create coals to bring into the Heichal, upon which the Ketores will be burned. And Ketores, a kapara for the chet of Lashon Hara, which is part of the chet of Adam Rishon. Okay, just a note on why there's a difference between the types of wood. Again, Tamid number 3, Maracha Gedol to consume carbonis. Any wood's kosher except for grape, vine wood, and olive wood. In particular, they used fig wood, or a type of wood that came from a nut tree, or atzei shemen. And the Maracha, to create coals for the Ketores, they tried to use fig wood for the reason I just mentioned. Rashi tells us because of the chet of Adam Rishon, where they acknowledged it through the use of fig leaves.